28 years old, already a widow for more than 2 years, I was returning to the United States without a single possession. My mementos and private keepsakes of married life had been pilfered or destroyed. I wore borrowed, ill-fitting clothes. A huge ulcer was eating into the flesh of one leg, and my once soft and fair skin was scarred and mottled from the hours I had spent working in the beastly tropical sun to advance the Japanese war effort. The diseases of imprisonment, beriberi, malaria, and dysentery had left me frail and debilitated. For almost 4 years, my fellow missionaries and I, along with 1,600 other women and children, measured our days in forced labor, meted the hours in separation and deprivation, and marked the anniversaries of the deaths of loved ones who succumbed, one by one, to disease, starvation, and the horrific bombings. No other world had come to exist beyond the margins of a few barren acres for the hundreds of us incarcerated at Campili. We were totally isolated, and the cataclysmic events that raged and scourged over the rest of the earth were interpreted to us solely through the eyes and whims of our Japanese captors. Not a single letter arrived from home. Not one humane Red Cross package or one encouraging pamphlet was ever dropped by the Allies or ferreted under the barbed wire to assure us that someone was fighting for our freedom. Now, suspended between captivity and a new life, I felt a fear I'd never known. Would I know how to live outside of the confined yet familiar regimen of suffering? Would I ever be free of the recurring, terrifying nightmares of trying to rescue people caught in burning buildings? Would I ever be able to close my eyes without seeing a young Armenian lad lying dead before me on a bamboo bed, one leg missing, cruelly amputated by an incendiary bomb, or stop hearing the ceaseless drip, drip of his body fluids splashing on the ceramic tiles of the camp commander's office floor? Would I ever forget the mute appeal in the eyes of what had been a beautiful blonde woman, a napalm victim of the bombing raid over our camp? When would the mention of the Kempeitai secret police cease to fill me with terror, or the sound of a plane not make me want to run and hide from the incendiary or shrapnel bombs the plane surely carried? And when would seeing others delirious with joy at being reunited not constrict my heart, still aching with deep pain from my loss of Russell? Suddenly I was awash in a sea of great bitterness. Lord, I'll never come back to these islands again. They've robbed me of everything that was most dear to me. The rowboat reached the flying boat bound for intermediate stops in Borneo and the Palawan Island, then on to Manila. Will there be healing for such hurt? I could only cry out to God and hope. Healing would have to come if I were ever to truly live, whole and complete again. Reaching up to grab the rope ladder dangling from the blister of the flying boat, a Catalina, I heard noises from the beach, running feet and calling voices. "Salamat Jalan!" A peaceful journey, the Indonesian voices rang out across the distance. Those who had come to know the Lord in our Makassar Gospel Tabernacle, and those who had shared in the indescribable suffering of imprisonment, stood waving in a group. Notification of our departure had come so suddenly that I had been unable to say goodbye. Their voices were raised in a sweet benediction. God be with you till we meet again. Their song released the waters of bitterness that had flooded my soul, and the hurt began to drain from me as my tears flowed in a steady stream. The healing had begun. I knew then that someday, God only knew when, I would come back to these